Yogah Karmasu Kaushalam.
Now in this part, we will be focusing on feedback for developing writing skills. Before we start, let's look at a few questions that we would like to introspect on. How do we provide feedback our students' writing? What type of errors have you identified in your students' writing? What difficulties do you face in giving feedback on students' writing? Do you really observe any improvement in the students' writing once feedback has been given? These questions are important because writing tends to be the most complex and difficult skill to master from all the skills of second language learning. Writing occupies an important place in any English as second language classroom, especially in the Indian context. Our education system is based on two skills, reading and writing. Students are required to do great deal of writing not only in English but also in many other subjects. But the writing task may not help much in improving their writing skills unless they are given reliable and appropriate feedback on what they produce. Major part of assessment, irrespective of subjects, is based on the writing skill. In India, all educational courses end with students giving one or the other test, which is majorly in the form of a written exam. However, it is a fact that students' writing doesn't improve as expected because of the traditional method of giving feedback, generally in terms of marks. Teacher feedback in our context is mere product oriented. Researchers have revealed that teachers rarely used the process approach for several reasons. Lack of time and the constraints imposed by examination oriented systems are major reasons for teachers not being able to provide feedback on writing. Therefore, there is a need for effective feedback strategies or mechanisms for developing writing skill. Any writing task may require feedback at 4 levels: content, secondly organization, third grammar usage, and lastly sentence structures. It is important for a teacher to balance between these 4 in terms of feedback and to find out the focus or purpose of the writing practice before providing feedback. It is also important to know whether the feedback is formative or summative. This will help the teacher know what, how much, and how to correct. Discovering the most effective way to provide feedback would benefit both the students as learners and the time-challenged teachers. Mere grammar-based surface error correction may not help all the time. The feedback should guide the students to become a writer. Therefore, it is important to know what the constituents of effective feedback are. There are certain factors that make feedback effective. The first one is the nature of feedback provided, whether it is direct or indirect. There is a distinction between explicit surface error correction and errors that are simply called to the student's attention. Common understanding of being direct or explicit surface error correction is to correct the error for the student, and indirect means just drawing attention of the students by underlining or circling the error. The first one may be considered as more time consuming and practically impossible. However, having developed abbreviations and codes to direct feedback, for example S-V, which equals to subject verb agreement, V equals to verb form, the teacher can help the students and save time. On the other hand, indirect feedback like underlining or circling engages the students in the process of problem solving. The students take it as a challenge and may even enjoy it. However, it may be effective at a later stage after direct feedback. Substantial initial work by the teacher by employing direct feedback may help him or her practice indirect feedback strategies to save time and energy. The next consideration is the type of feedback provided, whether it is form versus function. As a common practice, we provide feedback on both surface structure errors and content based errors. As teachers, we are interested in discovering the effectiveness of both types of feedback in order to focus our efforts on giving the most useful comments. The findings by Hillox are in favor of content-based instruction and feedback, despite the fact that historically form has been seen so overwhelmingly an instructional focus. He claims that the focus on content rather than form gives students the power to work with ideas, and contextualization using content helps learning the form as well. The third consideration is effect of time on students' learning from the feedback. We have to look at whether it is short term or long term. Any type of feedback should result into the student's ability to write independently. Revision of one task or essay doesn't guarantee the student's learning to write. Researches demonstrate no correlation between immediate student revision of existing text based on instructor feedback and student retention of such feedback and subsequent writing. Ferris, however, recognizes the value in short-term editing, saying that it helps to assess students' uptake of corrections received. Therefore, it is important to discover the effect of short-term feedback on long-term writing practice. The fourth consideration is the effect of socio-cultural factors. In Indian context, the students come to the classroom from a diverse socio-cultural background with different learning environments. Students come from a complex linguistic environment. The teachers often struggle with the notion of specific form of acceptable English. In addition to this, their misconceptions and confusions regarding using English may differ from person to person. It is necessary to address these issues related to heterogeneity for effective feedback strategies. Teachers' belief about feedback and how it works also influences feedback. Different teachers have different notions and ways of providing feedback. For example, it's always better to provide feedback as much as possible. However, for some, it's not important as it does not show any improvement. This attitude and behavior affects how the students take or process the feedback given. It is important to consider this for ensuring that your feedback works as expected. In this part, we'll be looking at the principles of effective feedback. The first principle is to explain feedback. Each writing instructor has his own strategies for providing feedback. For example, some prefer writing comments in question form, others like to highlight those parts in the draft that need revision. Many factors, of course, may come into play when the teacher decides what strategies to apply in a particular context. And truly, oftentimes, it all comes down to the teacher's personal beliefs about feedback. But in order to make feedback more effective, teachers need to explain to students how they are going to give feedback. This prepares the students in accepting feedback if it is known to them in advance. Second, make positive comments. Positive comments are very important when providing feedback. Sometimes teachers only focus on the part in a student's draft that need further revision or on the errors that need to be corrected. However, responses to students' writing shouldn't only point out errors or weaknesses, but they should also emphasize students' strengths. Each student's draft should have at least one or two positive comments from the instructor, which will go a long way in reinforcing the positive aspects of writing. Third, feedback should influence class activities. Feedback provided in student drafts will be more effective if the teacher implements classroom activities related to these feedback after students received the comments. For example, if many comments in a particular writing assignments were made about transition, the teacher should prepare a few activities that will help students use better transitions in their writing. Coupled with feedback, the classroom activities will add as reinforcement in helping them work on transitions again. Nextly, have students respond. Another feedback strategy that helps include students in the revision process is to have them respond to the teacher's comments in the margin. This may work particularly well when the comments are made on the computer by using a word processor as opposed to giving feedback by using the pen and paper approach. Fifth, individualized feedback. An individual approach is another important principle that teachers need to keep in mind. Common feedback may not work for all. Some students need scaffolding during the class and after the test as well, while some may just require a simple hint. Hence, knowing each learner and individualizing your feedback will help you ensure that the feedback is taken in a positive and a constructive way. Sixth, create a feedback plan. Self-reflection is a moving force in developing effective teaching skills, including responding to student writing. Those who work in administrative positions may find it helpful to have writing instructors submit their feedback plan, that is, looking at the goals and the principal strategies that will be used. At the end of the semester, teachers would evaluate and reflect on their performance according to this plan in order to make new goals and adjustment to their strategies and approaches for the next semester. Seventh, allow students to argue their case. In case students don't agree with the feedback that they have received, teachers should give them the opportunity to appeal. For example, students could submit a written explanation of why they don't agree with the comments made by the instructor. Ferris also thinks that this might be a great opportunity for students to develop their argumentative skills. Written feedback is the heartbeat of written instruction. Most teachers would agree that it is extremely time consuming. However, if done appropriately, it is worth the effort that teachers and students are putting into. All language skills have different feedback mechanisms. However, the basic principles would remain the same. For effective feedback, a teacher should know mechanisms of different language skills. Effective feedback is not possible without having sound knowledge of how language is learned. Sociolinguistic and psycholinguistic aspects of language teaching and learning must be taken care of. Though feedback is a complex and time-consuming activity, effective planning and a student-centric strategy may help in getting desired results. Feedback will go a long way in ensuring the students that what they have learned is either in the correct direction or a slight realignment is required. In the absence of feedback, students are lost, as end sem examinations and marks are not or may not be a proper marker for the competence that they have achieved through the semester or the course. Thank you everyone. That is the end of this particular module.
I would like to thank Dr. Surendra Gohil and Nitin Pillai for making a topic very interesting. Feedback itself is very interesting because we constantly look for your feedback, friends, and you may be looking for feedback of many of your near and dear ones. Just try to think of a morning when you get ready for some occasion and you ask your friends or maybe your counterpart or maybe your family members that how I look today. Do I look appropriate for the function? When we get ready, maybe with our clothes and makeup or whatever we need to, we take feedback of people that exactly do I look as I expected to. This is also a very simple thing related to feedback. In teaching, when we go to the class, when we face our students, we look at their body language. When we are in a class, we look at their eyes, that body language, and that also gives us prompt feedback. When you are talking about something and you look at the child's eye of a student or his body language, it tells you that exactly is he or she able to understand what you are communicating? Are they reciprocating? These all are some of the examples of feedback. And really, friends, feedback is something which is very important, which can help us making ourselves more effective. If we want to grow at every level, we should try to look at the feedback, and then based on the feedback, we should try to improvise ourselves. The question which comes to my mind is why feedback is very important for ELT courses. Nitin, I would like you to address this issue, that why this feedback is very important in this English language teaching courses also.
So for all English language teaching courses or any language training courses for that matter, we are looking at improvement. Improvement in what the student knows and what can happen next. For going from one level to the other, which is what we call improvement, feedback is necessary. Students need to know where they made some errors and how they can be improvised upon. In the absence of feedback, the student only knows that they have made an error and they don't know how it can be corrected or how it can be rectified. What happens in such a case is nothing but fossilization, which means that the errors stay with them and they are never able to go beyond that. However, if feedback is given, effective feedback is given to the students, they can remove these errors and go from one level of language to the other level. And that's why in ELT courses, feedback becomes an important and a crucial part.
Thank you very much for your input. Another thing which comes to my mind is what differentiates positive and negative feedback?
So, positive and negative feedback was a term that was generally used in ELT classes for some time, but now there is a shift. The same terms are now being nomenclatured as constructive and suggestive feedback.
Very true.
Positive feedback or constructive feedback tells the student that what you are doing, the behavior that you have shown, and by
Yes.
behavior we mean the language that you have produced, is correct and should be continued. Whereas negative feedback or suggestive feedback tells them that there has to be a slight change in the way that they have used the language, and it moves towards the positive side. So if you look at positive and negative or constructive and suggestive feedback, it simply means one talks about the positive way in which they are learning and asks for a continuation, and the other one, which is suggestive, talks about a slight improvement in what they have done and how it can be changed appropriately.
Very true. Friends, there is a difference between criticism and feedback. When you criticize somebody, you have a different way that you do it. And when you are giving feedback, that also has its own importance. I would like to tell you, friends, that look at this module again and again. Try to find out a mechanism which suits you in your environment in the best way. Try to develop some feedback mechanism, some objective kind of feedback mechanism for your improvement. Try to use it as a tool. Try to use that data which can improvise upon. Try to look at that data which can help you to produce better presentation in future. That will really help you to make yourself more effective than what you are today. Everybody tries to grow. Try to be in competition with yourself, everybody. Try to be better than yourself every day. Why to be in competition with others? Try to look at your own performance every day. Look at the feedback. Look at the constructive side of the feedback. See, it's not always necessary that you accept whatever is told by people as 100% or in written and in intention. But look at whatever you can really improvise upon. You can make a list of the stages, that this is first stage where really I can improvise from tomorrow. You can think of the second stage, which you can take some time, maybe 1 month, 2 months, and during that time you can improvise upon that. Some things can be, you can think of that I'll improvise upon this in next 6 months or 1 year. There may be some things which you think that you cannot improvise upon at present or maybe in near future, but you can keep those things in your mind and you can think to improvise upon them. It's not always to improvise upon, but it's sometimes to change little bit. It may be possible that you deliver something someday which is very interesting. It may be possible that the other day you deliver similar things but they are not interesting. So really exactly where to improvise upon. It's not always content, or it's not always presentation. It may be blend of both, or it may be something sometimes. So such feedbacks, such mechanism of feedback, then analysis of feedback, and then really making them into practice will make us, all of us, very effective. And as I told you earlier, it will help us in transforming ourselves from a good teacher to effective teacher. I would like to thank Dr. Surendra Gohil and Nitin Pillai once again. I would like to thank them on behalf of MHRD, National Resource Center of Gujarat University, and on behalf of all of you friends. Thank you very much, Nitin.
Thank you so much, sir.